Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss get it done against Georgia Saturday afternoon. One shout out to the Ole Miss fans. That place, it was gross outside. That place was rocking for 4 quarters. I think more importantly, like this Ole Miss team's a threat in the college football playoffs. Now you still got to get to the college football playoffs. We are starting to see Ole Miss play their best football in the month of November. Dill, when we previewed this game on Sunday afternoon, what did we say about this matchup? This matchup's different from these games that we've seen in the past because Ole Miss looks like Georgia along both sides of the line of scrimmage. And I'll even go as far as Ole Miss whooped up on Georgia on both sides of the line of scrimmage. If this Ole Miss team can play like this the rest of the season, not just to get to the college football playoffs, this is going to be one of those teams it's one of the most dangerous teams in the country. Jackson Dart is starting to get more comfortable. Shout out to Austin Simmons coming in, kind of getting it going for that Ole Miss offense. A lot of really fun storylines. Want to hop into, some of our biggest takeaways. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Ole Miss fans, let it fly in the comment section. This has been a team that's been a blast to talk about going back to early January, late December, when we kind of knew that Ole Miss was loading up in the transfer portal to make a run in 2024. The amount of support y'all continue to show means the absolute world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. Dill, I'll kick it to you. Biggest takeaways from a 28-10 victory for this Ole Miss program.
My biggest takeaway is I'll pose a question to you. Do you think there's a better front seven in college football right now than Ole Miss? I mean, and I'm including the linebackers because Chris Paul played unbelievable. I think Daugherty has been really good all year. Those two are so athletic. But, man, that defensive front, like with Princely U and obviously Perkins, I mean, they're so disruptive. They're so dominant. Like, you think there's a team playing better than them right now?
No, maybe the Vols front seven, but that's probably it. And I would take Ole Miss right now, Dill. What is working for Ole Miss on defense? And I'm happy you decided to start there because I feel like when the national media talks about Ole Miss, they'll talk about the 60 points they just hung up on Arkansas last week. They'll talk about Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, all really good football players. I mind you, Trey Harris wasn't even playing in this football game, Dill. The story for this Ole Miss team this year has been defense. It's not just a solid defense. It is one of the most dominant defenses that you see in the country. It doesn't take a rod. Like, I ain't a smart guy, but I sit down and watch Ole Miss and the size and speed of this defense. It looks like a Georgia defense. It looks like one of those elite defenses in the SEC. They're big, they're fast, they're physical, they tackle well in space. Dill, I would say no. It's playing like the best front seven in football. And I'll say this, when you have the ability to stop the run like Ole Miss, which they certainly did. Georgia, 59 rushing yards, averaging less than 2 yards per carry. And then that pass rush package deal where they take my man JJ off the field. They kick Jared Ivey down into that 3-tech, Suntarian Princely, and then you got Walter Nolan and Jared Ivey. They ain't an offensive line that can block up that Ole Miss pass rush.
And I know you've been saying it, but just the way they figured out to use Suntarian Perkins in this defense, and also his ability, frankly, to just win one-on-one matchups a little bit more consistently. But, man, when they get him in that kind of spy role, I don't want to call it the spy, but more like a delayed blitz role.
Yeah.
He is so dangerous. He's got such a burst off the line of scrimmage. Man, it's just, again, you talk about what's made this team different. It's their ability to legitimate control games against teams that you kind of like. Georgia's that team that we think like, oh, they're going to line it up and just beat the piss out of everyone. They're more physical. They're tougher. They might not have the skill positions that a team like Ole Miss has had in the past, but they'll beat them up. I mean, Ole Miss, you look at what they do today. They beat them up. Obviously, that defense in the secondary, I think they're really opportunistic. So compare that with a team that's really good up front. I think you have a really potent or dangerous defense. You certainly saw it today.
I thought the secondary was really, really sticky. And obviously it was tough conditions to throw the football, but those wet conditions also make it really hard to stick with wide receivers and play sticky coverage. I thought Ole Miss, there weren't a lot of just easy routine throws for Carson Beck and Dill in the second half. It became pretty clear, like Ernest Green at the left tackle spot did not stand a chance at blocking whoever lined up across from him. Georgia pretty much just had to go to the screen game. Like, wait, we can't pass protect, so we just got to go to the quick game, which, kind of takes away what Carson Beck's really good at, which is attacking that middle of the field in that short intermediate route tree. This Ole Miss defense, and I'm happy you mentioned Chris Paul because I thought Chris Paul was really, really good in this game, fitting the run. let's talk about this Ole Miss offense. And again, you look at the numbers, 395 total yards against this Georgia defense in those kind of conditions. That's a good performance. One of the bigger takeaways for me, though, Ole Miss got punched in the mouth right away. Like interception, give up a touchdown. I think there were probably a lot of Ole Miss fans like, here we go again. Hype coming into the season, go up against Georgia. We get boat raced. This team battled back. We got to start with a shout out to Austin Simmons. Like, love this kid coming out of high school, kind of a crazy story, reclassified 2 years, comes in, Dill. If Austin Simmons isn't able to lead that touchdown drive in kind of relief of Jackson Dart for that one drive, I think that might be a different football game. Shout out to Austin Simmons because I thought played a massive role in that football game there.
Even just continuing on with that offense, like you're seeing it be a little bit more quarterback friendly, frankly. And again, you see Jackson Dart certainly settling in. Austin Simmons came in that game cold, looked really comfortable. But again, I think the way they're getting everybody involved in this offense, again, like we've been banging this drum for it feels like 3 or 4 weeks now, ever since really the SEC schedule happened or started. Like that inability to kind of open this offense up and get everyone else involved. But you're starting to see Jordan Watkins, Caden Lee, both the tight ends being very heavily involved. Like they're such a dangerous team, I think, if they can have everyone working, because we talked about it. There's so many skill sets in that room. Caden Lee's emergence, I think, has been huge. Jordan Watkins is playing like legit wide out one. And when they get obviously Harris back, this should be like this right now is what I think we all thought Ole Miss was going to look like. And they did it to a Georgia team that was kind of the question was, can they physically hold up against this team? And that offensive line did it. And the offense kind of ran the way we expect.
Offensive line and pass protection was great. Now, Ole Miss didn't run the football extremely well, but Ole Miss's rushing attack did what they needed to do to kind of prevent Georgia from pinning the ears back and just getting after the passer. Shout out to the Ole Miss in pass protection. I thought they were really, really good picking up different stunts. Obviously, Georgia's known for kind of giving up and giving different looks. The communication was really good, but I thought just the individual players. I mean, like Georgia's caught some dudes on the defensive line. We've seen them. They a couple weeks ago, Dale, just completely overwhelmed and dominated a Texas offensive line. Ole Miss did a really good job in pass protection, keeping Jackson Dart clean. I'll say this to kind of close. Dill, this is not me saying this Ole Miss offense is better without Trey Harris. It has looked more healthy without Trey Harris. They're not just solely relying on Trey Harris working vertically down the field. Like you said, you have so much talent in that room. Use the talent. And my big question mark, and I think what Ole Miss fans should be really excited about is, Dill, if you can inject Trey Harris back into this offense 100%, but then maintain how this Ole Miss offense is attacking the middle of the field, getting the ball in space, and then just kind of sprinkling in Trey Harris working vertically down the field, that it all of a sudden becomes this offense that it's going to be extremely hard for any sort of defense to stop. And Dill, Georgia, one of the best defenses in the country. Yeah, Ole Miss scored 28 points. What, they kicked 4 field goals in that game?
Like that was the issue is red zone. And frankly, Trey Harris probably one of their biggest red zone threat in terms of his ability to win one-on-one matchups and be dangerous with the ball in the air. So again, that was probably the only issue their offense faced. I think a lot of people are going to look at the performance and look at the numbers and say, oh, their offense didn't do great. It's like, again, if they weren't just exclusively kicking field goals down the stretch in that football game, they probably score 40, 45 points.
I think the most fascinating story coming out is, like 2 years ago, you tell me, all right, well, let's just upset Georgia. I tell you, okay, they went 45-42. Did they just kind of win in a shootout? This game went how Georgia wanted it to go. Like, I think Georgia would want it to be rainy, messy conditions, lean on the line of scrimmage play. Ole Miss can play that game, and they played that game better than Georgia this afternoon. I think Ole Miss fans have a ton to be excited about, and Georgia fans, like, again, this is one of the best teams in all of college football. We just watched 2 of the best teams in all of college football. I think Georgia, if they take care of business, is going to be just fine in terms of college football playoff implications. But I think for Ole Miss, this shoots it. They should be a top 12 team when the rankings come out Tuesday night. If they're not, I'm going to riot. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.